Welcome, everybody. June 15th, John Aravosis here, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. for the latest Aravosis Report. Here to talk to you about the latest news from Ukraine and the war. Let me get TikTok. Excuse me. When I eat before the show, I'm like, let me get TikTok rolling here on my iPad. And then we'll take about 2 minutes or so for folks to arrive. You know how that works. War update. Boom. There we go. Introduce yourselves if you would. Say where you are from. Just going to change my mirror setting or my mirrored video setting. Boom. There we go. All right. Hello, everybody. Today was a fun tech day. Syndicate and I were busy trying to figure out why, well, two different people actually couldn't. We put a whole bunch of new auctions up, which I'll talk about later, but a lot of cool new auction items that we've got on our Discord community. So that's fun. Hello, Colorado, Norway. Hello, guys. Hey, TikTokers. Welcome, everybody. Do a quick, thank you, B. Smith. Do a quick little intro where you guys are from, if you would, because we always get new people every time. So it's always nice to sort of show folks. Thank you, Red Watts, for the gift, and Sexseed for the gift. And anyway, how are folks doing? I was dealing with tech stuff today, like I said, on our Discord, so that was fun. Sleuthing technical stuff is like infuriating, but also kind of fun in a math way, which sounds probably sick as well. But I mean, like when math problems work, I found them fun. And the same thing like tech stuff. When it actually works, it's fun. Anyway, welcome, folks. This is my show, as you all know. I'm going to wait about another minute or so for folks to join us. John Aravosis here in Washington, D.C. with the Aravosis Report. But I like to sort of get folks, the TikTokers and the YouTubers, everybody else, sort of give them a second to arrive. So usually we go maybe 2 minutes or so. Actually, if you're watching this taped later, you can jump ahead. Usually 2 or 3 minutes is when we start officially. A lot of interesting news. Today's an interesting news day. Thank you, Carol, for that. I'd say it's an interesting news day today. There's a very good story for Ukraine. That it's going to be kind of our second story. I want to start talking about, just overall where things stand. Moving forward, what Ukraine's facing in the counteroffensive. But then there's a really good, nasty story for Russia today. Great story for Ukraine with the war. So I'm going to get to that in a minute. Oh, thank you for the gift there, John S. And actually, Malayathos is saying he's liking the Tom Snyder Yale video. We were talking last night. We do an after party over on Discord nights that I don't finish too late here. If you're interested in Ukraine and the war and overall understanding Ukraine and what's going on, you should check out Timothy Snyder, Snyder, who's a professor at Yale. And he teaches a class on Ukraine, and he taped the entire thing, videotaped it, or whatever you want to call it, filmed it. Thank you, Mads. And it's on YouTube, and it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Bash Brannigan, I do already beaming live there. Hang on a second. Boom. Oops, I'm sending it to everybody. That's where you can find it, where you were asking. Trying not to use the keyword to piss off the TikTok gods. Anyway, guys, welcome everybody. Welcome TikTok. Welcome everybody else. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. This is where we talk about Ukraine, what's happening in the war, your guys' questions. There you go. Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm like, my computer chip stopped or something. Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, U.S. I'm based in Washington, D.C. Thank you, 863, for the gift. And we're here to talk about Ukraine. So the way the show works, first half of the show or so, I will tell you sort of the latest news, give you my take on it, and I try to pick stories that I think are relevant in a what's going on kind of way. Thank you, Fuzzy, for the dinosaur on TikTok. Very generous of you. Thank you. And then the second half, I take your questions. Now on TikTok, you can submit the questions via the Q&A link that's in my profile. That's probably the easiest way because they queue up and they're really easy to find later. The rest of you can use the comment box at the bottom of the screen. Also, I very much appreciate the gifts because I do this for free and I do it full time, and I've been doing it since the war broke out. So when you guys actually give me the gifts, that's actually paying my salary and paying my bills. So thank you very much. Please keep them coming. Last night especially, you guys were just ridiculously generous. I got off and I was like, oh my God. So thank you. Nick, especially on TikTok. Nick was even way beyond everybody else, but everyone else was generous too. Thank you, Kanausi. And all of you guys as well. Thank you. You can do the super chat questions and the super stickers, and I will always promise to get to those as the next question I get to. All right, guys, let's get rolling. So today is day 475 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation in Ukraine. Um, Zelensky spoke today, President Zelensky spoke today to the Swiss parliament by video, uh, basically urging them to get involved in the war. Uh, Switzerland, and it's kind of understandable. Thank you, Jamie, for the super chat there, or for the super sticker there. Kind of understandable from Switzerland's position, but Switzerland has always been non-aligned, so to speak, right? Thank you, Ava, for that, for the gift. And they therefore tend not to get involved in wars. They stay away. They stay away. Well, one thing they do, along with their sort of non-aligned policy, is that when war breaks out, they ban other people from reselling their weapons. So there have been some Swiss weapons which people wanted to get to Ukraine, and the Swiss have said no. We won't let them get to the Russians. We won't let them get to the Ukrainians. Thank you, Ash. I hadn't plugged it in. There we go. Oh, hell. Oh, that is cool. Sorry, there's a new little gift on TikTok that was absolutely insane. I just plugged in the mic right now. Is TikTok good now? Just making sure. TikTok mic is fine now, I'm assuming. I had it unplugged. Now I'm plugging it in. Make sure. Good. Sounds great. Okay, excellent. That is a very cool gift. Look, it's a really cool gift on TikTok. Anyway, that's insane. Annie Cat, thank you for the super sticker there. So Zelensky was there trying to urge the Swiss to get beyond their policy and allow the other European countries to, oh my God, thank you, TikTok. Thank you. Oh, okay. The rest of you won't appreciate this, but the TikTok gods have heard my message, and now I can see your comments again. Thank you, which means I also can see your gifts better now because I was able to scroll to the right, and now I can see all of your comments and all of your gifts, and I can see Ellie gave me a heart. Oh my God. Thank you, TikTok gods, wherever you are. Thank you. Now I don't have to. Anyway, I digress. So that was today in Switzerland. Zelensky was talking to the Swiss and saying, please help out. Thank you, Lee Shaw, for the heart there. Slow progress overall in the counteroffensive. This is not surprising. There's been more articles today, which was kind of interesting actually, because if you guys, I know some of you are new, which is fine. Some of you come every day, and I always talk about this is going to be very hard for the Ukrainians to pull off. It's going to be hard to pull off the counteroffensive, but it's also going to be hard even if they pull it off. And what I mean by that is there's going to be a lot of carnage. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you very much, Carlos. Very generous of you. There's going to be a lot of death, a lot of injury on the Ukrainian side, a lot of vehicles damaged and destroyed. The Russians will be facing the same thing. But this is a dangerous battle these guys are facing on the ground, World War II or World War I style, in trenches, going trench to trench. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second here. Thank you, Russell, for the gift there for the June. I'll talk about that in a second. But it per se means even if you win, thank you, Kanowski, even if you win, you will suffer great losses. The other guy will suffer more. So we need to be prepared for that. It also means it is going to go slow for Ukraine. The last couple days, or maybe I should say the last week. Thank you, Sam. The last week, things were going slowly, but in Ukraine's direction. The last 3 days, not a lot has changed. Okay. So that's one thing. Now, mind you, we're like 7 days into the counteroffensive. I mean, right. It started, or a week, actually, pretty much a week. Thank you, Ellie. It started last Wednesday night. We're Thursday today. It's too early to worry about ups and downs. Nonetheless, just be aware, folks. It's going to be a while. In any case, so slow progress overall. Not much advancement in the last few days. This was an interesting point I saw today because I was wondering exactly what the distance was from Ukraine to the main Russian defensive lines. You know how we've been talking about sort of the three main areas where fighting is taking place right now for the counteroffensive. Up here on Bakhmut, down here, maybe Volodar, hard to say, sort of a string of villages around here heading towards Mariupol, and then over here, near a town called Orikhiv, okay? The Russian lines, these guys are still a ways to go until they hit the Russian defensive lines. By defensive lines, I mean minefields, trenches, although they're already going through trenches and minefields now, but minefields, trenches, dragon's teeth, which are basically these big, cement blocks sticking out of the ground that look like the teeth of a dragon coming out of the ground. They could be 3 feet tall, something like that, that can stop your tanks, and therefore your tanks have to go somewhere else. Where, guess what? The where else your tank goes, where there isn't a dragon teeth, is a minefield, right? So it's that the Ukrainians haven't even come up to that yet. That's the stuff. And I found today how far it's about 15 to 20 kilometers, or maybe 9 to 12 miles ahead of them is where they're going to run into this stuff. That's why I keep saying it's going to get harder and harder as they go on. There was some interesting quotes that the New York Times pulled from an article this week that I saw, and a lot of the defense folks were sharing on Twitter. And the New York Times decided to talk to the guy and get some quotes. Anyway, his name is Jack Watling. He's a defense specialist with the Royal United Services Institute in the UK. Thank you, Barbecue Joe, for the football helmet. And let me read you a little bit of what he was saying. Currently, there's bloody fighting to clear. Currently, there's bloody fighting to clear foxholes and hand-dug trenches along Russia's frontline fighting positions. So Ukraine basically is having to go foxhole to foxhole, trench to trench, hole in the ground to hole in the ground, clear it out, and then move on to the next one. Right? I mean, not easy work and messy work too if the weather's wet. Behind these, so then what comes next? Listen to this. Behind these were complex minefields of anti-tank and anti-personnel mines, he wrote. Ukrainian forces trying to push forward into these areas will most likely be closely tracked by Russian drones. So they're getting through a minefield, they're going through trenches, and at the same time, they've got drones overhead tracking them. They're being targeted by Russian artillery. And near the main Russian defensive lines are properly dug trenches and concrete reinforced firing posts, tank obstacles, ground-laid cable to coordinate artillery strikes, and even more mines. You get the idea. He then goes on to say, but that's not all. Then the Ukrainians have to worry about air power, about attack helicopters, about warplanes. And that's been one of the stories. I don't claim to be sort of an air power expert, but that's one of the stories that folks are talking about right now. Is it looks like the Russians are doing a very good job using their air power, going after the Ukrainian troops. Now, this is something that folks have been worried about for a while now. And again, it was, I'd be very curious to hear from some of our, I'm going to sort of throw this open as I'm talking, but to some of our military folks who watch, because I know we've got a lot of really good, either current or former military folks. And I've asked you this before, but I was reading more about it today, about why is it, okay, Ukraine and Russia both were basically having to sit on their air forces because neither one had, we said, not air supremacy, but air, I will always get this wrong, not supremacy, air, what is it, guys? Not air dominance. What's the word I'm looking for? Basically, neither one of them had control of the airspace, right? So they had to be air superiority. Thank you, Edsel. Air superiority. Both of them had to be careful. Both of them had to be careful using their air forces. Well, now the Russians at the front are using, everyone, you should see this. I've got an entire screen of people saying superiority on TikTok. Okay, now you guys are scaring me because you're clearly folks that are up on this stuff. What I don't understand, and again, I've got to do more reading on this, but I'm also throwing it out to you guys. If Ukraine and Russia both were in a situation where they had to be careful because if they use their planes, the other guys could knock them down pretty easily. Why is Russia being so effective at using its planes at the front and Ukraine isn't being as effective at stopping them? Now, some of it I've read. I was literally just read an article. It might have been this guy's article that I was reading right before the show. And it was talking, for example, that the Russians are making sure their planes are flying very low. And when it's very low above the treetops, it's harder for you to see them and to use basically shoulder fire missiles, okay? Part of it is the Russians firing from far away, right? So if they're out of range of the missiles you're using. But I guess what I'm trying to figure out, thank you, Succeed, would the F-16s have made a difference? And are there other, thank you, Ellie, is there other equipment, other, armaments, whatever, that Ukraine wanted that they could have gotten that would have helped them in this situation? Or was it a given that Ukraine was going to have to deal with really tough Russian air power when they were advancing on the ground? Right? This is what I'm just curious, because I've got a sense from everything I read that Ukraine shouldn't have had to go through this. Everyone is saying this is very unusual. Thank you, DMR. Very unusual that Ukraine is having to do this with insufficient air power, right? Okay, some people are saying A-10 Warthogs, although, you know, it's funny. A-10 Warthogs are, I guess, a very slow-moving plane on the ground. I always knew it as a tank killer. They would go and hunt tanks and vehicles like that, although supposedly Warthogs, thank you, Chad, Warthogs need a lot of cover as well. I don't know, maybe it's from F-16s or whatever. Strela 10 air defense system. So looking what else we got here. You guys on TikTok are the ones really weighing in. You know, but this is the question. Okay, F-16s as launch platform. This is the question I've got, because it's clear from the folks you read that they're saying that it shouldn't have had to be like this for Ukraine, and I just don't know whether it was the F-16s or what. But sorry, let me look here. A couple different people. Some people are saying, I don't think the A-10 would be a good fit for this mission profile. Copies is saying, I wouldn't say it's so much effective. It's simply easier to call air support if you're dug in and waiting for an enemy to come. F-16 will help for sure. Close support and air help. Otanbot says the deployment of F-16s or other Western aircraft may help the Ukrainian military by providing better intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities, as well as improved air-to-air and air-to-ground munitions. Now, that is something that we talked about the other day, I think, that you guys were telling me, or it was on our Discord, actually, that folks were saying, thank you, Succeed, that folks were saying, which is that the F-16 integrates much better with a lot of the weapon systems we're giving Ukraine. Right, that we had to basically help them jerry-rig how to put some of these missiles onto the MiG-29s, the Soviet fighter jets that are now Russian that they've got, and that had they had F-16s, they work a lot better basically with F-16s because they talk to each other. In any case, I'm just sort of bringing it out there because it's something. I'm going to do more reading. I'll get back to you guys on it. Ukraine doesn't have F-16s. Ukraine doesn't. Oh, they're not F-16s. Well, that's a good question too. I mean, bottom line, I'm telling you guys right now, because I was just reading a lot about this. The Russians are claiming, Institute for Study of War actually came out with this tonight. Now, the ISW simply said what the Russians are saying. The Russians are saying that one of the three reasons they're doing very well in the last few days is sort of their air power advantage versus the Ukrainians. And I have read going into the counteroffensive nonstop articles. Thank you, Cheryl, by defense experts. Oh, it was Cheryl and Michelle. Make sure I didn't miss anybody here. Sorry, Cheryl again. Thanks, Cheryl. I appreciate that. But I've read sort of nonstop defense experts going into the counteroffensive saying that Ukraine is at an incredible disadvantage because of the air power situation. And basically they're going in without the air power they should have. And it's being presented as this is a bit of a crime. It's not being presented as, oh, well, there was no way, right? It's coming across as though, yeah, that's one of the things we let slip. Okay. Patriots are trouble because the Patriot, you've got only two systems right now that Ukraine has. Okay. I say system meaning like the entire system, and then you've got multiple rockets coming out or multiple missiles coming out of the Patriot. They've only got two. One of them is in Kyiv. I don't know where the other one is. They're not very mobile, so they're not meant to be just driven around wherever you go. Second of all, there is concern about moving them close to the front and them getting attacked because they'd be a great target for the Russians to go after. So I know Patriots, that's a big issue there. Anyway, let me keep going here, guys. So the good news. Okay, now that I've given you like the bad news and we're all going, crap. Ukraine doesn't have the air power it needs. There's a great story today. This week actually, Putin sat down and met with some Russian military bloggers. Now, Institute for the Study of War reported on this. Putin met with these bloggers because they're very far right. They're nationalists. They're the kind of people who really want Ukraine to win the war, but they want Ukraine to win the war so much that they think Putin isn't doing enough. And they're very critical, very public about every mistake that Putin or the Minister of Defense or the Ministry of Defense makes in Russia, right, with the war. Putin met with them because he was getting worried that he was losing sort of control of the message with these guys because they were so angry, these bloggers, about what was happening in Belgorod. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Belgorod is Russia's region up here where Ukraine appears to have helped these Russian insurrectionists cross the border and try to basically liberate lands in Russia, right? So the bloggers have been pissed about that. They were, I'm going to look here really quick. What was the, oh, I don't have the detail. Oh, no, I do. Yeah, I do. They were, let me see here. They were pissed about Belgorod. They were really upset about the drone strikes inside Russian territory. So that would be like the two drone strikes, multiple drones going after Moscow, and border security in general. So Putin meets with these guys. They tell him for like half an hour about all the problems the troops are having at the front. But I think meaning like problems the troops are having, like the troops need your help, Mr. President, right? Putin turns around, and I literally read this before I came on with you guys. Putin turns around and tells them, this is the first I'm hearing about this. Why has no one told me that his military like needs help, that a lot of the soldiers aren't getting what they need? My guess is, what else could Putin say? Putin can't go, yeah, I've known about that for a year. I just chose not to help them. But I thought that was an interesting point. But the best part about this story, these bloggers tell Putin, multiple of bloggers, they're pissed. Why are they pissed? Thank you, Dedike. That's a very nice gift. Thank you. Why are these bloggers pissed? Because recently there was a gathering of Russian military soldiers. These soldiers got together to hear a speech from their commander. They were about, do you know where they were? I think they were near Kremina. I should look at my little notes here. Yes, they were near Kremina, which is just northwest of Severodonetsk. So more or less, right about, Bakhmut is over here. Kremina is right up here. So in the same area, right, where the fight is going on. They were in Kremina. They were getting ready to fight the Ukrainians. And their boss decided to give them a big rah-rah motivational speech. Nice. According to the bloggers, there were hundreds of them. Okay. The boss decides they should all assemble together, the hundreds of them close together. He also decides they should assemble to hear his speech. They should assemble outside in the open air. Hundreds of them pushed together, basically standing side by side in a row, like, in rows and side by side. So they're all together, several hundred of them in the open air, and the boss doesn't show up for 2 hours. He's late. But being a Russian military guy, he decides he's going to make these people stay. So these guys are stuck, standing outside in formation, hundreds of them together in the open air, daytime. What do you think happened? Ukraine killed them all. The Ukrainians found out. They sent a drone. The drone then sees these guys. Now, I wonder whether Ukraine didn't have intelligence on the ground. Thank you, Kanausi. Whether Ukraine didn't have intelligence on the ground, right? But basically, the drone spots these guys. They get the exact coordinates. They tell it to the HIMARS people. Jack is saying this can't be true. Jack, this comes from the Russian military bloggers meeting with Putin. The military bloggers themselves. We know this story because the Russians are telling it. I mean, if it's not true, the Russians are telling a story that makes them look horrific, okay? And that is going to make all the Russian troops and all the Russian citizens despondent. It's going to kill morale if this is a lie. So there's no way it makes sense. For 2 hours, these guys are sitting there. So what happens? The Ukrainians tell the HIMARS, they tell it where it is. HIMARS is mobile. It's on wheels, but you got to get it within range. So the Ukrainians have to drive the HIMARS within range. 2 hours later, the HIMARS is finally in range, and these Russian soldiers are still standing there waiting for the speech. The Ukrainians blew them all up. I don't know how many died. A lot died. The military bloggers were furious. Keep in mind, this happened New Year's Eve. Do you remember New Year's Eve? I'm forgetting where it was. Somewhere, I don't remember where it was in Ukraine, but it was occupied territory in Ukraine by the Russians. And New Year's Eve, they decide, Putin was giving his big New Year's address. The commander decides, you are going to hear Comrade Putin's address. So he orders everyone into the barracks. They crowded 500 soldiers into the military barracks to hear Comrade Putin's speech. The Ukrainians find out. And just for added measure, the Russians either had munition stored in the basement or stored on the street nearby. It's something out of a cartoon. This is like the Roadrunner, right? Killing Wile E. Coyote. So the Ukrainians find out, they blow up the barracks with 500 Russian troops inside, and there's ammunition next door. So the ammunition goes up, taking the rest of it. I mean, they already had this. This is, people were asking, and again, you military folks probably know better than I, but I'm suspecting this is part of that. I think it's the sclerotic system the Russians have. It's the top-down nature that you see the military folks always talking about how the Russians basically, you always have to kind of do what your commander says. And if your commander dies or doesn't show up, you literally have nothing to do because you're not empowered to make decisions on your own. But it makes me think that if you're not empowered to make decisions and you're always following orders, you never learn, because you can't learn from something and do something different next time because the guy above you is giving you orders. Yeah. So anyway, that's what happened this week in Russia. So again, it's moving slowly for Ukraine in terms of taking over the towns. It's, if anything, there hasn't been much movement at all for a couple of days. Ukraine's coming up to some very difficult defensive lines that they're going to have to take. There's going to be a lot of death and injury when they do, and we know that. But this is one hell of a, Alan's saying he read up to 800 people. All we know is the Russian military bloggers are saying hundreds. That was their quote, hundreds. And typically, the military bloggers do two things. They lie about the positive. So the positive they make sound better. And when they tell a negative about Russia, it's usually true. Thank you, Ellie, because there's really no reason for them to give a lie about how badly Russia's doing, right? It doesn't really make sense. But typically when they lie down. So meaning they don't tell you as bad as it really is. So if they're saying hundreds are dead, or I should say hundreds are dead, hundreds were there and hundreds were hit, it probably is worse. Anyway, amazing news. Thank you, Vaughn. Let me give you a quick pitch for supporting my work, and then we've got a few more stories. Basically, so I've told you guys this before. I do this for free. I've been doing it since the war broke out. I like it, so I'm happy to do it anyway, but I'm not doing the consulting. Normally I do consulting and I work on my own. So I am basically paying my bills doing this. Well, the way I pay the bills is with your guys' support. You have been very generous. The gifts on TikTok make a huge difference. The gifts on the other sites, like you guys with the super chats and super stickers, make a huge difference. The subscriptions, everything you guys do. We've got auctions, which I'll show you guys later, that help. Thank you. I would block me too for the heart. But one of the ways we do it too is either outright donations or subscriptions. Thank you, Vaughn and Marcy. The way that works is I've got things set up with Discord, which actually sort of partners with TikTok. So I think TikTok's okay with that. I've also got a site called Coffee set up, and you can check out Coffee as well. But basically, you can set up either a one-time donation. Actually, if you go to my bio on TikTok and click the link, you'll see the very first thing that comes up is the site you can use. You guys have got it at the bottom of the screen, that one and the one below it, the two links. And you can use those links to give me a one-time donation if you want, or you can sign up at the site that's Coffee, except it's spelled kind of funny, but I'm not going to spell it because the TikTok algorithm gets very upset when you mention outside things, but it's pronounced Coffee. I'm going to pronounce it Coffee. Thank you, Chief. But the Coffee site, which is the first link that's going to come up there, and the first link in my profile, when you click it, that'll come up, is a site where you can give one time or you can give a monthly donation. And the monthly donations are super helpful because basically it allows me to start to establish, like the people do on Substack, start to establish kind of monthly income that it can finally work. Callum, I don't even know what you wrote, but if you're trying to find the links, you can just go to my profile and click the link and they'll all come up. So if you can do that, I'd appreciate it. Go check out my links at the bottom of the page here, that one or the ones there. For you guys, go to my profile and click the link, but you will find the links, and the very top one is the one I would recommend you use because it's a nice way to give one donation or ongoing. And final point, if you get the ongoing donation, the monthly, thank you, JR, then you are automatically a VIP in our Discord community. That gives you other benefits, including my eternal gratitude, but also the weekend chats we have when we get together. Thank you, Jens. That is correct. The weekend chats when we get together, our VIP auction and other things. You can gift. I mean, you can just gift. It depends what you mean by gift. But if you mean just give a donation, you can simply go to my link on TikTok, click the link, and you'll see all the different sites that you're familiar with of ways you guys can help. So thank you for that. All right, guys, let me keep going here. So I talked about Putin and the bloggers. Okay, a lot of little good stories. Denmark and the Netherlands have signed contracts to purchase 14 Leopard 2 tanks from the German arms manufacturer Rheinmetall for Ukraine. That's good because basically, remember last week we heard that Ukraine had lost a number of Leopard 2 tanks and Bradley fighting vehicles. Well, Biden stepped up and said, okay, you lost 8 or so Bradley fighting vehicles. We're going to give you 15. So that's great. This now is Denmark and Netherlands saying, okay, we heard maybe you lost 8 or 12 Leopard tanks. Now, mind you, the Leopard tanks, some of them are just damaged, so they may be able to get those repaired. We'll see. Chancellor Scholz, I believe he himself mentioned that today. I believe it was the Secretary of Defense, the American Secretary of Defense, who said that, thank you, Feisty, for that, who said that a lot of these weapons aren't destroyed, they're damaged, so Ukraine can get them fixed, which is good. In any case, bottom line is there's more Leopards coming, which is great. Abrams training. So the Abrams are the Americans' tanks that are coming possibly sometime this fall. We hope the fall rather than the winter. Reportedly, the Pentagon said today that Ukrainian soldiers will likely finish training on the American Abrams tanks by the end of summer. That's good news too. Now, end of summer, thank you, Feisty. End of summer, generally, well, certainly for American terms, ends of summer means end of August, beginning of September. That's good. Now, I don't know how quickly the tanks can get there. I do know that we're actually going to be getting them the M1A1, which are the older tanks, the older version, because they're available. The newer tanks, we were going to actually buy them, but it would have taken too long. Pretty cool if they're able to get tanks that quickly. Dario Byrne says, why are you promoting war? Dario Byrne, I'm promoting war because there's a genocide going on in Ukraine. And just like World War II, which I supported the Allies in World War II as well, it's important that we stand up to people who are trying to kill innocent men, women, and children, who are out to literally wipe a country off the face of the planet because they simply have an ego that's gotten too big. That's why I support the war. Yes, and you should too. So let's keep going here. Chechnya Fighters, Belgorod. Let's talk Belgorod, man. Let's talk Belgorod. Peace through strength, David Wallace. I'm all for peace, but again, it's like World War II. Would you tell the Allies stop fighting? We should have peace. Of course, we should have peace. I mean, if someone's mugging you on the street, are you going to sit there and go, "Hey, you know what? This guy is literally got me in a chokehold and is beating my wife. I think we should have peace. I'm not going to fight back." Is that what you'd say? If I saw you getting mugged on the street with your wife and somebody was attacking your wife and the other guy was knifing you, and I decided to run up and help you, would you turn and go, "Oh, no. I'm for peace, John. Please don't help us while we are getting mugged. Please don't." Thank you, Roshan, because you know what? I saw the super chats coming when I was talking, but I was in the middle of something and I forgot they were there. Thank you, Adventures and Mark Starr. We had a couple super chats here. Bash, I had put that up already to ask folks why aren't Ukraine's MiG-29s enough? Like, why can't Ukraine use its aircraft to compete with the Russian aircraft? Unless it's a lot of other, for example, I know it's attack helicopters. Thank you, I would block me. It's attack helicopters as well that are causing a problem. I don't know what Ukraine has in terms of attack helicopters. But nonetheless, good question. Why isn't Ukraine just using its planes to fight back the Russian planes? 6evo says, did you hear about Ukraine hosting an event tomorrow? I did not. Meaning there's talk that Ukraine is going to do something tomorrow. I assume it does not mean a party, but it means maybe a military strike. I don't know. My guess would be, though, that typically, Ukraine's very careful about such stuff. So I doubt they would. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, maybe Ukraine's up to something tomorrow. I guess we'll find out. I just don't know. The map for Roshin. Okay, Stephen. Roshin wants the map. It's been a while. Roshin, there's your fabulous little map. Nicely tightened from last weekend. Thank you. And Nancy simply got a super sticker because Nancy rocks. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate that. All right. I am back. And now I'm back to looking at this screen so I won't lose it now, Roshin. Oops, sorry. Put that back up there. So now I won't lose it because I've got the screen back up. Hang on a second. I'm going to zip through these. We'll put Nancy up since she was the last one. Thank you, Nancy. All right. Let me keep. Oh, so Belgorod. This is great. Okay. Belgorod. This is kind of a funny story too. So Belgorod is the region up here across from Kharkiv, Ukraine. right on the border. This is all Russia, by the way, okay? Bordering Ukraine. Russia also goes down here and way up there, way over there. This is the area where the Ukrainians seem to have been recruiting either Russian military fighters, fighters of some kind that they may have armed, they may have helped them in some way. It certainly seems the Ukrainians helped them in some way to attack Russia. And basically, these are Russian troops attacking Russia and trying to liberate Russian cities from Russia. I mean, it's a civil war, basically. They have had some success, which is pretty wild. They're still fighting. I mean, these guys have not been destroyed by the Russians yet. They, as of last I heard several days ago, they claim to still control some villages. Well, the news now is that the Chechen fighters have now moved into the area. The Chechen fighters tend to be pretty good fighters. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's a perception that the Chechen fighters are good fighters. We don't really know, because there's also the perception, I should say the reality, that the Chechen fighters are TikTok fighters. They really like to film themselves on TikTok and show how cool they are. And you know, you kind of have to wonder, right? If they're so focused on their public relations, in any case. So they are now in Belgorod, reportedly trying to help Putin, because the regular Russian troops are doing a terrible job kicking these guys out. Meanwhile, and this is funny, CNN reports that multiple residents of Belgorod are reporting that the Russian troops that are there helping liberate them from the Russian troops from the Ministry of Defense who are fighting the insurgents are basically trashing the homes and stealing from the Russian citizens in the area. These are not the insurrectionists. These are not the rebels. These are the regular Russian military who are fighting in Ukraine. They're now in Russia itself trying to kick these guys out, and they're stealing from the Russian citizens in the town. Listen to these quotes. One woman said, "They live in our homes, lead an ugly lifestyle. Alcohol and other things remain in the form of garbage and dirt. Toilets and houses are polluted. Personal belongings and property are stolen." Thank you, Adventure. Another woman says, "All things were turned over in the house. They were looking for small, precious things. Some of them were stolen. There were acts of vandalism in one of the houses. TVs were broken. Furniture was ripped up. Soldiers obviously lived in the house." I mean, they're doing this to the homes of their fellow Russian citizens. Yeah, toilets were stolen. Toilets and washing machines were stolen. I mean, no, this is on point. What is interesting about this is what we saw. Dawn's ahead of me. Dawn on TikTok goes, "Where have we heard these stories before?" This is what the Russians did in Ukraine. Remember we even found some of these guys. I didn't find them, but people found some of these guys because they posed, they wrote with feces on the wall of people's homes. I mean, they literally did destroy the garbage everywhere, destroyed the homes of the Ukrainians, and then took pictures to show off. And then people found out who they were because these idiots were taking Instagram photos or whatever website of themselves. Anyway, but doing it to it's bad enough to do it anyway, but doing it to your own citizens, you should be, as a military person, you should be sort of honored if for some reason you can use their home, right? Now, my suspicion is the citizens had to evacuate, because they did evacuate the citizens from the border areas where these guys were coming up. Darren says, "Am I making these?" Not Darren. Who said that? Are you making? Jay, who's about to be banned, who I hope is going to be banned, says, "Are you making these stories up?" No, because these stories come from Russian citizens who spoke to the media because they were so upset. You can Google them yourselves, Dan, because the Russians are talking. That's the best way. I always say, when you get these things, thank you. When you get somebody, by the way, just recommended somebody on TikTok who is the biggest Russian propagandist out there. 100%. I don't even repeat his name, but I just wanted to mention, in case people in the comments were noticing, that was somebody promoting a Russian propagandist who's really bad. In any case, the trolls are upset. That's okay. A top ally of Vladimir Putin, two more stories, has insisted Russians living abroad should be urged to flee large Western cities in preparation for a Russian nuclear attack. He thinks the best way to teach the West a lesson is for and he's apparently an ally of Putin, a top one, is for Russia to nuke all the major Western cities. Thank you, Slim, for the heart. And that'll teach us a lesson, and we'll no longer support Ukraine. Actually, I can tell you what would happen. If Russia were to nuke major Western cities, Moscow and St. Petersburg would cease to exist. as would most other top Russian cities, and we would have a world war. It would be a global thermonuclear war. It would be a disaster, and we would basically be risking the end of life on the planet. Everybody knows that. This Russian knows that. You are once again, and I'm bringing it up because the story's out there, you are once again witnessing Russians in a panic. They know they're losing. Again, what's going on right now is going to be hard. I mean, right now for Ukraine, this is going to be hard. So this is going to take a while. But the Russians know overall, this is not going well for them. And they were given the orders, talk about nukes. Look, right, just yesterday and the day before, we had Belarus talking about how I will use Russia's nuclear weapons myself, the dictator of Belarus. Thank you, Sean, for the hearts there, right? He claimed he would use Russia's nukes. How is he going to use Russia's nukes? This is what they've been told to do. Talk about nuclear weapons because it's the only thing that potentially will scare Westerners. And especially, at the very least, who is it that always talks about nuclear weapons? The people who are defending Russia, right? The people in our countries who are basically like, congenitally required to defend Russia and attack Ukraine. Thank you, Tom Clark, for that. They're the ones who always go, oh my God, Russia's threatening nukes again. Elon Musk, right? David Sachs, Elon's little mini-me, sits there and goes, oh my God, they're going to have nuclear war. Glenn Greenwald, all of these people. It's all they've got. It's honestly, it's the same people. I will say, to some degree, well, I'm not even going to go there with the earlier stuff. My Rhino has a very generous super chat question. Is Belarus a staging ground for Russia, or do they have their own military? They do have their own military. Russia also has a lot of troops there, and I believe it's a staging ground. They've certainly launched planes from there to attack Ukraine. I don't know whether they've got artillery. They probably are, that they're shooting from there. Do they pose? They have their own military. It's not big. I think the Belarusian military might be 60,000. It's a really bad military. Some people have said it's the worst military in Europe, although I'm sure Moldova's isn't big either. Do they pose any threat to Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, or Estonia? I mean, I wouldn't think so. 62,000, I got it right. Thank you. Thanks for the updates. You said you are very welcome. It's a good question. I mean, do people who are familiar with this, with the geosecurity situation in the area there, I'm going to go with Belarus does not pose a real threat to the Polish military. You've got smaller countries with, once you go further north, actually we'll show people. So Belarus is Putin's puppet, run by a dictator named Lukashenko. It's right here. Russia is here, and then Russia's 11 time zones. I mean, it's huge. Okay. But Russia's here for starters. Belarus is here. The Russians came through Belarus to invade, and they also came through Russia the first time around, through here as well. There's been a lot of noise that maybe the Russians might invade again through here, or maybe the Belarusians might invade, this kind of stuff. So there's been a lot of preparation. Ukraine's mined the border and everything else here. Poland is over here. So Poland's bordering Belarus. Also, Belarus is bordering, I'd have to see the map, but my guess is at least Lithuania, maybe some of Latvia is my guess, but a couple of the Baltic states, 2 of the 3 up here. This is just my guess. Some of you should probably jump in. The Belarusian military is no big deal. I'm going to guess Poland could destroy them with a flick of the wrist. The Baltic states are small. Their population's around 2 million, give or take, each of them. So the size of their military, I'm not too sure. Having said that, you've got a lot of British troops. You've got, I believe, you might even have Swedish troops. You certainly got British troops and German troops in a number of the Baltic countries who are helping defend them. So okay. Peter Thomas Sr. says Poland would roll them. Poland would destroy them. And the thing is, if they attack the Baltic countries, that's NATO. And by the way, if they attack Poland, it's NATO. So, they're not going to, I will say this though. You still need to, there's Spanish troops in the Baltics. I did not know that. Thank you for, I can see by the coloring in your avatar that we're probably dealing with a Spaniard. I did not know that. That's really interesting. Estonia has 15,000 active troops. Okay, there you go. Yeah, they've got small militaries because they're small countries. Poland's got a ton. We also have armor in Poland. Yeah. In any case, the thing is, Belarus is a dictatorship siding with Putin. So I think you're concerned about them because they're there, right? And you're concerned about them because they're in league with Russia. So you'd still be concerned about if they attack, does that mean Russia's coming too? There's that kind of concern, but their military on its face is not a threat. No, no. But what they bring with it, the alliances with Russia could be a problem, obviously. Let me, you know what? I'm going to skip the last part. I'm going to skip the last part because it's kind of evergreen, and we can maybe leave it for tomorrow. Yeah, we'll leave it for tomorrow. Let me do a quick pitch for our auctions. We have a number of auctions we do on Discord. As I said, Discord's a nice way. Basically, it's a chat community we've got. We talk about Ukraine a lot. I mean, all day long, we're chatting about Ukraine on Discord into the evening. It's kind of a nice place to get the latest news because a lot of people are sharing the news stories. And we have these kind of discussions where we're like, hey, what's going on with the airfare, with the air power? I don't understand it. Or this new weapon system, why does it work better? This kind of stuff. And a lot of military experts are there just by chance. I mean, you guys to help us, which is really helpful. But one of the things we also have in the Discord community, which is free, you can come, we have auctions, and the auctions are really cool. It's a neat idea that we started to help my work because I do this for free. So therefore, I have to find ways to pay the bills because I do this full time. It's with your guys' gifts, which I very much appreciate on TikTok and YouTube and elsewhere, but also with doing the auctions on the Discord. Well, the way I do the auctions is I get cool stuff from Ukraine. I'll show you some of it, sort of neat stuff from Ukraine, and then auction it off. And I just kind of felt weird getting stuff from Ukraine and auctioning it because I was like, I need the money because I'm doing this full time. I've got to pay the bills to do this, but I wanted to help Ukraine too. So I decided early on, half the auction money would go back to Ukraine. And we've done that from the beginning. My friend Vlad helps coordinate it. We've been channeling it to humanitarian aid, some of it to military aid to help with drones, drone extenders that were used at the front, camouflage nets, but a lot of humanitarian aid for children and other stuff. Well, let me show you a couple of the auction items. We just started the new auctions today. They end next Wednesday. They all end on the same day. And some of them are public auctions, meaning it's for everybody. Some of them are VIP auctions who are for the paying supporters. And the paying supporters, you guys can become a paying supporter by going to my profile on TikTok. Click the link, and the very first thing that comes up, the coffee site, is the one you can use to become a paying supporter of my Discord. You have to become a member, so to speak. A one-time donation won't cut it. You have to do the membership thing on Coffee, where you become a recurring member. You guys can use the links at the bottom of the screen, either the big one or the big one at the bottom actually is the one for Coffee. And if you become a monthly member, you're a VIP, so you get access to the VIP auction too. Let me just show you. I've got a record 10 things up this week. Among them, some very cool Ukrainian-themed earrings that one of our members, CK Ariette, made down in Texas. She makes jewelry as a hobby, and she made these based on an authentic Ukrainian Vyshyvanka. I say coffee, blah, blah, because if I pronounce it the right way, TikTok's algorithms will get me in trouble. So there you go. She made some beautiful ones before that people loved. So we've got these up now. I've got an authentic Ukrainian military patch. These are kind of neat. Vlad was able to get these in Ukraine and initially actually got into some trouble shipping them out because they were wondering why he was buying real military patches and shipping them out. And he finally said he had to talk to them. They called him. They literally grabbed the package at the border, and he said, no, we're selling these in America to make money to help the country. And then they were cool. This is a real military patch. I've even got the pictures in the auction showing some of Zelensky's top aides wearing the patches, which is very cool. 2 sweatshirts. This one is my favorite. This is Patron, the mine-sniffing dog. It's a sweatshirt of him fishing for mines. It's a hoodie. It's very thin, so it's nice because it's like a summer weight sweatshirt. Very cool. But I love this because it's based on the stamp that Ukraine made about the dog, and it shows, it says Ukraina, in Ukrainian at the top, and it shows Patron fishing for mines, which I think is adorable. The other sweatshirt is we found the Zelensky sweatshirt. This is literally the sweatshirt. I'm always afraid to open these because I can never fold them as nice as they did when you buy them. These are the real Zelensky sweatshirts, the sweatshirts that Zelensky was wearing last fall when he went to Britain and spoke to the British Parliament, when he spoke to the joint session of the US Congress, when he went to the White House. These are the sweatshirts. I mean, this was not Zelensky's. This isn't like Zelensky's sweat, okay? But we went to the same company and bought them. We've got them in all the sizes right now, medium to triple XL. but that will be going away. Anyway, we're auctioning these off as well. And these are great. Actually, I still have not grabbed one for myself, and I may have to because they're really nice sweatshirts. And finally, for fun, where's the other one? For fun, I have here some, and the thing I like about these is because they're real, because I got them myself. These are, I'm going to try to hold this up for you guys to see. Wait, here we go. These are, there, you guys saw it. Now you guys, I'm doing this totally backward here. There we go. These are authentic pieces of the Berlin Wall that I broke off on December 3rd, 1989. Oops, here, I even hold it. They're small, but this one has paint on it, which is nice. So, because you want one with paint. They're very small. I admit that. They're very hard to break off. But I was in Berlin. I worked on arms control issues in the U.S. Senate, among other issues, back in 1989. And we had a congressional delegation when the members of Congress go abroad and to meet with all the arms control talks. We had meetings in Berlin. And this was still when the Soviet Union was around, when Eastern Europe was still occupied by the Soviets. So we were there. This was the time when the Berlin Wall was coming down. This was the time when everything was blowing up, when the countries in Eastern Europe were finally being liberated by the people's movements there. Berlin, East Germany, I had already said people could cross, but it was still a very difficult time because the German, the DDR, the communist soldiers were still on top of the wall holding their machine guns to patrol it. It was like a really weird situation. So that, and they were telling us not to break stuff out. Don't break the wall. All of us did it anyway. Not easy because the wall is cement. And the problem we had, literally, this is why the pieces are so small. Imagine trying to break a sidewalk. I had no idea. Now, in retrospect, I wished I'd gone and bought like a hammer and a chisel, because I should have. Any case, I went there. All right, I usually don't do this during the show. I do it afterwards. I'm going to show you the one thing I did get. Hold on. Okay, this is going to be 10 seconds. Hold on. I get excited about this stuff. All right. So, sorry. I get very excited about the history stuff. I love this stuff. So it's like 2:00 in the morning, and I go to the wall with this guy. I met this guy and his friend at a Christmas stand, because it was already December 3rd. And they have these beautiful Christmas stands in Germany where I learned what Glühwein was. It was, like this hot mulled wine, and the long hot dogs. So this guy's like, he told me, because we can go to the wall and you can get pieces. I said, get out of here. 2 a.m. So we go there. And again, it's impossible to get the cement, because imagine trying to break a sidewalk. How do you break a sidewalk, right? Literally cement. Very difficult, but there's chunks of the wall missing. Well, sticking out of the wall is a huge piece of what is called rebar, reinforcing bar. It's steel or iron. I always, whichever one, it rusts, but whichever one's, they put long pieces of metal in concrete to reinforce it. Have you ever seen concrete, right? These long pieces of metal. There's one piece of metal, iron. Okay, thank you, Webidub. There's this one piece of metal sticking out of the wall. They had liberated some of it. And I thought, hey, maybe I can bend the metal back and forth, and at least it'll knock little pieces out, which it did. I did get some big, I say big, meaning pieces like this for myself that I'm keeping. Well, I did this for 20 minutes. The metal got so hot that it finally broke. So I love this thing. I got my huge piece of rebar from the Berlin Wall. Now, this thing I'm never selling. This thing's staying in the family forever. Oh, that's right. I've got my picture too. I can show you guys. See, now we're doing show and tell, but it's worth it for history's sake. The picture's over here, I think. Yes. The picture's over here. Hang on. I forgot I moved the picture around. Oops. Ooh, my big piece too. Yeah. Ooh. All right, real quick, I'll show you the picture and then the big. So my friend took a picture of me breaking it. You can see here with the piece of rebar. It was still attached to the wall, and just bending it up and down for 20 minutes. It finally got hot and broke, but it broke off some little pieces. You guys can see here. December 3rd, 1989. So it broke off some pieces, and that's the piece I got. Well, the nicest one I got was this one. It ended up being 2 pieces, but they fit. Hold on. I can't tell. Here we go. They fit together. But you can see, like, on my head how big it is. Getting something this big with paint on it was next to impossible. It's so difficult to get this stuff to break off because, like I said, it's cement. Anyway, very excited. Look, you got me doing a coffee talk now. We do this on the weekend. I show my cool stuff. In any case, so that's where these came from. These were little fragments that came down as well. And I wrote up a whole, thank you, Adam, for that. I wrote up a whole, I get intoxicated on this stuff. I really do. Oh, no, not that. I don't really drink. No. I don't drink. So I wasn't drunk. I was just excited because I was like, I'm in Berlin. And the thing is, I grew up during the Soviet years. So to me, the fact that the Soviet Union was crumbling and the fact that Eastern Europe was free, I mean, I get chills talking about this stuff. This stuff mattered to me on a very personal level. It just did. I just cared about this stuff. So no, I mean, December 25th, Ceausescu and his wife in Romania. I mean, like amazing what was happening at that time. In any case, so I wrote up a nice little fact sheet too that's in the auction, and the fact sheet has the various pictures, concrete, not cement. Aren't they the same thing? I assume they're the same thing, aren't they? What's the difference? Anyway, you got a piece too? Very cool. In any case, there you go. We won't keep doing the Berlin thing, but I've also got pieces of this. Basically, you go to discord.aravosis.com. The link is in my profile on TikTok. You guys have the link at the bottom there as well. That link will get you there. And you go to my Discord. Привет Alas, or Ala, or Alia. I can barely see. Alia. I don't have my glasses on. Oh, hang on. Ala. Okay, nice to meet you. But in any case, you go to the Discord. It's free. Sign up. The public auctions are for everybody. The private auctions are for the paying members who do the once a month payments that you can do on Discord, but you can also do it at the coffee site, which is, again, in my link on TikTok, in the link there. All right. Let's do questions. I didn't plan on doing 15-minute show and tell, but I did. All right. Cement is the fine powder that glues together or cements things, and concrete has rocks in it. Oh, interesting. Then this is concrete because this has rocks in it. Which one did you say it was? Now I'm confused. Okay, I'm totally. In any case, it doesn't. Whatever. I can't. This is like when I tell military people and I call a ship a boat, and they go, "It's not a boat. It's a ship." All right, back to Ukraine. All right, guys, let's do our questions. Concrete is what I have. Okay, thank you. All right, one is a liquid, others a solid. All right. Boy, there's so many concrete experts here today. All right, guys, let's do the questions. On TikTok, obviously. Thank you, Jetta Mom. You guys can go to my Q&A. I'm going to put my fan back on in here because my room suddenly got a little warm. Oh, there, AC is on. Excellent. All right, good. And let's do questions. And please do keep the gifts coming as well, guys. But thank you, Tom, there. All right, TikTok questions, Q&A. Did you see the video of Russian bloggers saying that Belgorod was safe and secure? Oh, that's good. Sorry. Thank you, Timothy. I've not seen that before, although now it's making me want candy. Thank you for that. Thank you, Russell. Did you see the video of Russian bloggers saying that Belgorod was safe and secure from free Russians only to run for cover as mortars raid down? Okay. You know what's funny? No. What I saw, thank you for Tom, for the hat and mustache. Maybe this is the same video. I saw a video like 5-6 days ago that showed like Russian bloggers under fire. I did see that. I hadn't watched the whole thing, so I didn't realize they had said, "Oh, everything's fine," and then got bombed. That's funny. I didn't realize that. That's very funny. I mean, not funny that they got bombed, but you know what I mean. Well, it's a little funny that they got bombed because they're horrible people. So, if Putin goes out of the picture, what are the chances we see another revolution attempt in Belarus to topple Lukashenko? Interesting. Well, okay. I always say one of the things you've got to be careful of is if you are going to overthrow somebody, you want to be very careful who comes next. Okay. So that's sort of a general rule of having studied foreign policy and international affairs, but it really is though. It's one of the things you've got to always have in mind is who comes next, what comes next. Will it be a disaster? Will the country fall apart? Will there be a civil war? Will there be, in Putin's case, will there be somebody worse? Will it be somebody who would use nukes or something, right? I don't know. So that's one concern. I don't know enough about the day-to-day workings of Belarusian politics to say if Lukashenko died, what the chances would be of a revolution, or whether, I've heard there's sort of these top guys. Thank you, Timothy. I don't know if it's a Politburo or what it actually is in Belarus, but there's a lot of power makers at the top who sort of help pick the leader, that they would be sort of responsible for getting the next person. Adam says with Belarus, it probably will be a revolution. I mean, I would hope it is a revolution in the sense that it's been a brutal dictatorship for, I think he's in his third decade now, So, and they have had popular uprisings before that Russia had to help put down several years ago, which is interesting. But that's the only thing. You've got to, exactly. Virgil's saying, how about the lawfully elected president of Belarus? She's fighting for her country. Exactly. Is it like Tatiana or Svetlana? There it is. I would say Tatiana. Otanbot has it. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. There you go. Yep. I follow one of her aides on TikTok, actually. He's very good. No, on Elon Musk's site. I'm not supposed to use other site names for TikTok to get upset. But he's on the tweet place. But I follow one of her aides, or her top aide. Yeah, he's very good. Oh, okay. You were asking Belarus again. What should we make of Maria Zakharova's comments about nukes, saying they can use them in extreme circumstances? Nothing. I mean, first of all, yeah, they can, and we can use ours. I mean, she's basically stating platitudes, right? The Russians can use their nukes. Yes, they can. And we will respond if they nuke one of us by nuking them. That would be bad. I mean, it'll be bad all around. So, right? I mean, the stuff, exactly. I should have actually explained that MJ is saying mutually assured destruction. The doctrine is called mutually assured destruction, meaning we can destroy each other. Okay? We can do. Thank you, Timothy. I appreciate that on TikTok. We can destroy each other, and it ensures that we don't destroy each other, right? We don't use our nukes because we know Russia's got them. Russia doesn't use theirs because they know we've got them. In Ukraine, it becomes a little bit of a different situation because Russia goes, well, if I use them against Ukraine, I'm not really using them against America, and Ukraine isn't in NATO. So it's not per se declaring war on NATO. Then it becomes an issue of, what has NATO told Russia privately about using nukes or biological or chemical weapons in Ukraine? And how convincing was what we told them? Because Russia has to, in this case, Russia has to not necessarily think we would use nukes, but Russia has to think if they use nukes in Ukraine, NATO says we're entering the war. Because if NATO enters the war, Russia loses. Russia can't. I mean, Russia's having a hard time against Ukraine. Russia's not going to do well if NATO's air force is in there, right? I mean, kiss Russia goodbye. NATO's cruise missiles, forget it. So, no, NATO would take them out. So, in any case, all of those threats help ensure that Russia's not going to use. Now, again, somebody could do something really stupid and use them. Yeah, they could. But I have a hard time believing it because what happens next is not going to be pretty if they do. So I would not worry. What I would worry about is, I would not worry about her making those threats. What is concerning is, and a number of Russian experts or Russia experts have noted this, how sloppy the Russians have gotten about using these threats. How and they really hadn't done this kind of thing during the Cold War, threatening nuclear war all the time, threatening to bomb our cities. This is the kind of thing you would expect from North Korea, right? From some two-bit dictator, right? And we do. North Korea is always making these kind of threats. Saddam Hussein, right? Saddam Hussein couldn't stop talking. Saddam Hussein used to make me laugh because Saddam Hussein would always threaten. Saddam Hussein and idiot in Libya, Gaddafi. They would always threaten us and call us like running dogs, and they would always compare us to dogs, which always cracked me up because I was like, that doesn't really work in English. You are an ugly running dog, and it was like, okay. I like dogs, but I mean, it's, yeah. Anyways. All right. More questions. Let me see here. I'm just looking to see if the YT folks. I'm not going to use the name. We're not going to upset the TikTok gods. But the YT folks, as always, are discussing things amongst themselves. They always crack me up with this. Well, something. I mean, Copy says, how could anyone be worse than Putin? The problem is, you get someone who, like Prigozhin. Prigozhin thinks they already should have used nukes in Ukraine. That's how. You get somebody like him who says we can use nukes. The Americans aren't going to do anything, or what they do won't be that bad, right? The Americans aren't going to use nukes if we use nukes. That's true. We're not going to use nukes in response, right? I mean, does America really want a whole war with? I mean, like that would be the argument to say, would Biden blink if we use, not blink, but would he just do more sanctions? What would he do? You know? So, but no, you could have somebody worse than Putin. You really could. Yeah. Well, exactly. Plenty of loose cannons. Well, the thing is, you just need somebody crazy enough. You need somebody crazy enough that he doesn't care about mutually assured destruction and everything else. That he basically thinks the West will blink, right? We wouldn't use our weapons if they attacked us or if they attacked Ukraine. So, my opinion. I mean, feel free to disagree, but you know, the French insult the police by calling them chickens instead of pigs. Oh, that's funny. Poulet. Or what's the other word for chicken? Is there another word? Well, I know some of the other words, but yeah. What else we got here, guys? Beep. No, Kelly's asking if I heard about a sheepdog in Idaho who got thrown from a car wreck and was later found on a sheep farm herding sheep. No, but did that have some relevance to our discussion today, Kelly? You're confusing me. Good, nice story though. Do you think the U.S. and NATO will increase military aid and size because, oh no, this we had yesterday. Okay, you guys got to put more questions. We only had like 4 questions from the TikTokers. Come on, guys, you can do better than this. The Q&A link in my profile is how you submit questions on TikTok. You can do it on the screen, but they kind of go flying by. What will it take for Putin to withdraw? I think it's going to take a loss like Afghanistan, and frankly, Afghanistan for us as well, or Iraq for us, or Afghanistan for Russia, where basically you've lost so many troops and so much money and so many weapons, and you realize it's not working. And people back home get fed up with it. You know, thank you, Adventures, for the gift there. They're not there yet. I think there's Nick, I'll take a look. There's a chance we could get there, right? Clearly, Putin's worried about domestic discontent. Thank you, Deb, for the lights. He is. But I think it literally takes Russia losing and seeing there's no hope. But losing might mean losing everything. It might mean them losing all the territory that they grabbed this year, and meaning in the last 14, 15 months, which is all of this. It should be all of this, I should say. And then this, which they stole in 2014. So this was 2014, and this was in the last year. I mean, they almost have to lose everything. And even then they're going to want it back, but they have to lose so badly that people, honestly, they almost have to lose so badly that somebody like Putin gets overthrown, and whoever comes in blames everything on Putin and says, that guy's an idiot. This war was a disaster. It should have never been launched. Or even better, it should have been launched, but he screwed it up. And now we've lost our entire military. And for the next 5 years, we've got to focus on ourselves. That would still be pretty good. And at that point, we make Ukraine a member of NATO, and they aren't going to touch Ukraine ever again, right? But I think that potentially would work. But the problem is, good luck getting Putin overthrown. I mean, that's not happening anytime soon, right? All right. The one thing it does is it doesn't show me I have to click through to see your names. I don't know. ISM Johnny or JSM Johnny saying, how is Prigozhin getting away with defying Putin? Prigozhin is the billionaire oligarch who somehow manages to just take on Putin all the time. Typically, he's going after the Ministry of Defense, but we know who's running the war. It's Putin running the war, right? So every time he criticizes the war, he's criticizing Putin or how the war is going. And he's also occasionally made some direct comments about Putin as well. I don't know how he does it. But I just don't know how he does it. Supposedly, he's a friend of Putin. There's also the theory out there that maybe Putin wants him to be doing this stuff because everything he does keeps the Defense Department the Russian Ministry of Defense on their toes. He's always going after the Ministry of Defense. So it's keeping the Ministry of Defense worried and fighting back because he's making them look bad. If you're Putin, Putin apparently likes people fighting. He likes to pit people against each other. So maybe Putin's behind what Prigozhin's doing. Maybe Putin's doing it to try to make his military more, put a dog at their feet, barking at them so they're afraid and they keep trying harder. It doesn't make sense, though. It doesn't make sense. There's some reason Putin's not taking out Prigozhin. See here. The nuclear plant? No, not really. The nuclear plant situation, well, basically the International Atomic Energy Agency, the United Nations agency that is the experts on nuclear energy, they were there today. I think they were there a couple days now, but they were there today and reaffirmed. I mentioned this yesterday, so I didn't really bring it up again. They reaffirmed that there is enough water to keep the nuclear plant in southern Ukraine, in Zaporizhia, safe for the time being. That would be at the tip of the land here. It's in Russian control. Remember, south of the river, Russia controls. So it's at the tip of the land here is where it is. And that's the update. Yeah, nothing bad was going on. So I didn't, basically he confirmed what we already knew, which was it looks like things are okay at the plant for right now, but very dangerous. Anything could happen, this kind of thing. Do you think Poland will enter the war and not wait on NATO? Thanks, Ryan. That's an interesting question. That there was reporting last week that supposedly Poland and the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, had threatened that if NATO didn't make some super duper progress towards letting Ukraine in by the NATO summit that's coming up in July. So there's a big NATO summit coming up next month. And the Baltic states, Poland, maybe some others, want real promises from NATO as to what's the timeline. Like, what does Ukraine need to do? What's the timeline after the war, whatever, that Ukraine gets admitted to NATO? There was an article, but I didn't hear anything else about it, that supposedly they were threatening, Poland was threatening, and the Baltics maybe too, but Poland was threatening to possibly send troops into Ukraine if there wasn't sort of more progress on Ukraine joining NATO. I don't know what that means. I just don't know what that means. Meaning, do they mean fighting with the Ukrainians? Do they mean sending Polish troops to guarantee that Putin? Now, they might mean sending Polish troops to, in essence, guarantee that Putin won't invade the rest of Ukraine. For example, do you send Polish troops at Ukraine's request, of course? Do you send Polish troops to occupy all of it? Mind you, again, this is the war zone, what Russia's occupying. Do you send Polish troops here? Do you send Polish troops all the way to here or here? Basically, to say Russia hands off all this area, and if you touch that area and attack our peacekeepers, yeah, right, our troops are just there to keep the peace. If you attack our peacekeepers, you're attacking NATO. I don't know. There wasn't a lot of clarity as to A, did that really happen, that threat, and B, what did Poland mean by it? Now, knowing Poland, I wouldn't doubt that maybe they did make the threat, long question, but what the heck? Malayathos. Russia attacks the American psyche every day online and has colluded with the alt-right to infiltrate our Supreme Court, weaken our constitutional republic, and attempt to turn this country into a dictatorship. Should the U.S. civilians be ready for war? The tie between the alt-right and Putin, anti-trans and anti-Ukraine propaganda makes me furious and want to fight even though I'm 40. I guess it depends what you mean by ready for war. Ready for war with Putin or ready for war domestically? I'm hoping we don't have war domestically. I think that is absolutely the language that is being used. I don't want to get too much into that stuff right now, but the language that's being used to describe things is the language of war, right? Let's not get into it too much, but the way Trump is describing his situation this week and the way some of his defenders are describing it is language that justifies violence, right? If literally, I'm going to stop with this because I don't want to get too off topic, but if literally the Justice Department is run by crazy people whose only mission in life is to throw Republicans in jail for no reason, then we've got a Nazi state. You know what I mean? Or a Soviet state. And Trump even said that. He said it's, these Marxists running around and everything else. If that's true, then somebody will turn violent if that were true. So I'm saying it's the language of violence that's being used. That's what worries me, is I think violence is going to happen. I don't necessarily think we're going to have a civil war, but but there's going to be violence from what they're saying. Yeah. But let's move on from that. I didn't see this. Thanatos is saying, what do you think about Putin's comments about there are no more red lines? They've all been crossed. I didn't see the comment. I didn't see the comment. Let me do a quick search while I'm talking to you and see Putin, if it comes up quickly. No more red lines. Let's see. No, ex-ambassador, this was in January, ex-ambassador explaining Putin. No. Yeah, I mean, Putin's had so many red lines, and none of them have been red lines. They've threatened to do things, and then Ukraine either does it or the West does it. Remember, don't give HIMARS. Don't attack Crimea. Don't attack these territories, because these territories now are part of Russia. So if you attack these, you're attacking Russia, and that means we use nukes. Well, Ukraine's been attacking these with our weapons. Ukraine even got some of it back here. They got some of it back here, some of it back here, and there's been no nukes used. So, Putin's red lines, which also I think is why you're seeing Biden and NATO being much braver about supplying weapons now, because finally folks are going, Putin's bluffing on everything. Wilson, thank you for your question. Or put Polish troops in a situation where Russia might accidentally trigger NATO Article 5. Yeah, no, that's the question. No, now you get an interesting question of, and NATO itself, it's not like a computer decides whether Article 5 is triggered. Men and women decide if Article 5 is triggered. So if Poland were to move troops into Western Ukraine at Ukraine's request, just to sort of keep the peace as a tripwire, right, to stop Russia from invading that part. Let's say they were worried about Russia taking over that part or something. Is Poland moving into a war zone sufficient to not generate Article 5 because Poland brought it on itself, right? Article 5 isn't triggered, for example, if you attack another country, right? So if the US attacks, I don't know, China, Article 5 isn't triggered. We started the war, so to speak. China attacks the US. Well, China's a bad example, actually, because NATO Article 5 specifically deals with Europe and that area. If you look at the language, more or less. So I shouldn't have brought up China. But the idea is, if you attack somebody first, Article 5 isn't triggered. If you get attacked, Article 5 is triggered. So is Poland putting troops as peacekeepers in Western Ukraine enough of Poland asking for it, so to speak? You know what I mean? So that other NATO... Now, but again, because these are men and women making a decision, some NATO members might say, BS. Poland walked into Ukraine and they tempted the Russians to hit them, and the Russians hit them. That's not Article 5, right? So it's each country individually, or I should say NATO collectively, has to decide whether Article 5 has even been triggered, right? But it's interesting. But I mean, and then you've got Hungary. Hungary would be a disaster anyway, as far as Article 5 goes, right? I mean, I guess I'm kind of, well, yeah, in any case. So we'll do a couple more questions, and then maybe we'll go to the Discord, because we haven't been doing that for a while. That's not true. We did it once this week, but we'll do it again this week. Let me do one more. Beep. All right. I think, let me look. One last. Does Putin have cancer? Oh, we don't know. We don't know. There'd been a lot of talk about it, but a lot of it was not a lot of it. It was all clearly rumor. First rule about Article 5 is don't talk about Article 5 exactly. I mean, a lot of it is rumor, so who knows if Putin has cancer? I mean, we just don't know. We just don't know, So, all right, guys, let me do a quick summary. We always do the recap of where we are with the news, and then we'll go over to Discord and hang out over there. You guys can find the Discord link in my profile on TikTok. Click that link, and maybe the second or third thing that comes up is Discord. You guys can find it via the link at the bottom of the screen, the Aravosis, my name, link. We'll bring up the link of links, and that'll show you the Discord. Well, actually, I'll just type it here for you all. Oops, hang on. There we go. Okay, Otambot put it there anyway. I put it on the screen for you all there. So I'll do the quick summary of the news, moving my little Berlin Wall pieces, which you can see the pieces of rock in them. I'm like afraid of even moving these things. I keep them in a glass case. Actually, you can see sort of closer up. They are very cool. These, because like I said, they had color, but it was just impossible to get pieces with color. Because but you can even see how thin this is. Like you chip it off the wall and it gets super thin. So it just falls apart. No, they're nice pieces. And these two fit together, which is nice. So they fit together as one big piece, which is really cool. I was very happy. Miss Super Chat, I don't think so. Oh, any news re Moldova? No. Nothing on Moldova, actually. There's nothing on Moldova. Kelly Fonts, I don't think so. I did get Wilson. Oh, Wilson's second question. Yeah. No, literally nothing on Moldova. I mean, absolutely no news whatsoever. So, all right, guys, let me do the quick summary, and then we will go over to Discord and hang for a little bit. Over on Discord, once you join, it's the very top left. You'll see John's after party. That's what we'll be. Exactly. That's okay, Kelly. I did forget about the second question, but also because when I read it, I went, oh yeah, there's nothing going on with Moldova. So I didn't think about it. Should Moldova and Ukraine invade Transnistria? That's interesting. Thank you, Sean, for the galaxy. I always like the space gifts. I'm all for freaking out the Russians, which means Ukraine and Moldova invading Transnistria would be fun and funny. There's also a lot of weapons there, apparently, the Ukrainians could get. It also would take it back from the Russians and give it back to Moldova, which is just and right. It also would liberate a lot of people who are living under like a communist dictatorship. Interesting. The question for Ukraine would be, Ukraine would have to get something out of it. Whether there'd have to be sufficient weapons or something for Ukraine to get out of it. Otherwise, Ukraine shouldn't be trying to get its they shouldn't be trying to focus on Transnistria when they should be trying to liberate their own land, right? They don't, it's not like they have so many men that they've got the leisure of, let's go liberate Transnistria too. You know what I mean? Right. So that would be the only question was, does it really make sense politically for Ukraine, or I should say not politically, defense-wise for Ukraine strategically, or should they be focusing more on trying to liberate the areas they've got? But it would screw with Putin. It would make Russia all of a sudden, the eye of Sauron would switch and go, oh, Moldova. And Ukraine might get a lot of weapons, which would be very interesting as well. So it could be interesting. All right. Quick summary of the news. Day 475 of Putin's 3-day special military operation. Thank you, Gabriel. Zelensky spoke to the Swiss parliament today by video, pleading for them to help Ukraine with weapons. Slow progress overall on the various fronts in the counteroffensive. Not much advancement in the past few days. And then I told you about sort of a nice article by a defense expert talking about all the things that the Russians have as defensives in their defensive line that the Ukrainians are still like 6 to 9 miles away from. Tanks and trenches and landmines and you name it. Lots of things, lots of difficult things coming up for the Ukrainians ahead. Institute for the Study of War says Russian military bloggers report that Ukraine blew up hundreds of Russian troops gathered for a motivational speech who stood there for 2 hours waiting for their commander. And while they stood there, the Ukrainians blew them up with the HIMARS. Per Newsweek on Tuesday, Putin met with several military bloggers to discuss the war in Ukraine because Putin's getting worried that in sort of the information space out there, he's having problems. Basically, that Russians are getting pissed off because of things like the invasion of Belgorod by the Russian insurrectionists, the drone attacks on Moscow are making Putin look weak, which also starts to be a reason to do them potentially. Denmark and the Netherlands have signed contracts to purchase 14 Leopard 2 tanks from Germany for Ukraine. The Defense Department said that Ukrainian soldiers will likely finish training on the U.S. Abrams tank by the end of the summer. Chechnya Fighters have been deployed in Russia's Belgorod region to help out with, again, the insurrection of the other Russians that invaded to liberate Russia that Ukraine's mucking around with. And then I read a few stories about some Russian women who said the Russian troops, the actual Russian troops, not the invaders, the Russian troops took over their homes and trashed their homes and stole everything. lovely thing to do to your own people. Top ally of Vladimir Putin is talking about nuclear war again. They're just saying it to scare us. None of it. It's a sign that they're losing. And that was actually it. Final thing is, I will be, I'll do all my coffee talks this weekend. We've got a coffee talk. This is for the paid subscribers. Coffee talk Saturday morning for the $5 and up subscribers. So $5 and up and beyond for monthly, that is. That would be, go to the Discord. You'll see, you can either pay on the Discord or you can go to the site that is pronounced similar to coffee. You will find the coffee site in my profile on TikTok. Click the link. It's the first thing that comes up. For you guys, it's at the very bottom there. It comes up. myname.com is how you pull it up there. Use it. But if you become a monthly member, that makes you a VIP. And the VIPs, all the VIPs, all the monthly subscribers come to Saturday. Well, you're eligible to come to Saturday morning show at 11 a.m. Eastern on TikTok and on Discord. And Sunday, I will do a get together of the $25 and up, which we do every month, but it hasn't really been every month. Every once in a while, we get the $25 and up. That'll be Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And finally, Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Again, I may not keep doing this show, but Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, we get together on Twitch and hang out at the Aravosis account over on Twitch. And I do a weekend review show. So check that out as well. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I will see you all another time tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern time, to talk about the latest from Ukraine on TikTok. And the rest of you over there, same time. And thank you for joining us. But let's go over now. Thanks for the gifts. Thanks for going after the trolls. Thanks for being here. And let's go over to Discord and hang for a little bit there. Okay. Look for the John's after party in the upper left. And I'm going to grab some food and bring it over. So I'm going to eat as always, I'm going to have my food while I chat with you guys. All right, guys. Thanks for joining tonight. Appreciate it.